Workshop to order. Proceed with motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Alderman Sugar, second by Alderman Benstock. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So that goes started with the agenda, starting with item number 1, town judge reappointment process.
So this will be bringing you the second reading of the ordinance to sunset the previous appointment of the town judge, which was done improperly by ordinance. So we're sunsetting that ordinance, and I'll be also bringing you a resolution to appoint Judge Williams for another 2-year term from July 1st, 2026. After that, if that's approved, we'll get the circuit judge in here to administer the oath to him one day the week of July 1st, and we'll get that term started. So it's more of a formality at this point, but those are the 2 items that'll be coming for you in later in June.
Does anybody have any further questions about that? All right, so we'll add that to actions at the meeting this month, and then take us on to item number 2, revisit of the city versus town discussion.
So last month at the workshop, we talked about this a little bit. There was a decision to revisit it after a month and see if there were any other thoughts or concerns or issues. I put some bullet points together for you of advantages, disadvantages, and it's really kind of down the middle as far as I can tell versus pros and cons. So, open to any discussions or questions you have. If you wish to table it, we can table it. Whatever the will of the board is, we'll be happy to entertain that. This is just for your informational purposes for consideration.
In my opinion, I would rather just table it because for me, we are it goes back to being a resident community. When you think of cities, you think of economic opportunities, business growth and development. And we just don't really have that. We've always been a town. The only difference is people are moving in here and they're conflicted if they want to call it a city or a town. But I think that when the Mount Carmel was incorporated, the whole consensus was just to have a town. And if they wanted it to be a city, they could have named it City of Mount Carmel.
I would concur with that.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
With that being said, would you entertain the idea of changing City Hall from City Hall to Town Hall?
Absolutely.
That's what I would do.
Absolutely. Because that's an easy change versus going through and changing all kinds of signage and stuff. I'm not really sure what all has the town of Mount Carmel on it, if we have anything that does.
It doesn't. The same one. This building is the only thing that has something on
The
it.
official seal.
Right.
The official seal too.
That would be, I would agree with you on that. It's just changing it to town hall.
And you
It's
said
kind of our heritage.
the official seal.
The official seal has town of Mount Carmel. So that would require a change. The thing you probably can do is you can table it, but you can also, identify that city and town are synonymous with one another. If you look it up, the semantics of the word don't mean anything anymore because they don't have a definition based on population or residential versus commercial versus mixed use versus any of that any longer. They've blurred the line for that. So if you can, agree that town, city hall, whatever, because we get calls all the time for, hey, I'm calling the city of Mount Carmel. Okay, we're the town of Mount Carmel, but I'd rather not correct a resident and just go on and talk to them.
Right.
Because I know what they mean. So, and I mean, we're a municipal corporation is basically the right term, but that doesn't make any sense to anybody. So town, city, whatever person I'm talking to, I can adapt to that. But having city hall on the outside of the building confuses people.
Right.
So.
And we have been uniform here as far as we can be, but we have been scolded by others for using the term city and things.
I've been corrected too.
This is a way to certainly take care of that, but also if we have the understanding they're synonymous and we make the change outside, assuming we can do that without
destroying
the building or major expense.
Right.
Of course, if it's going to be a main expense, I may come back to you and say it's going to cost this much money. Do we just want to leave it? We'll just have to see what it costs.
My question would be more on the pro side, just reading through this list, is of what would be the advantages, disadvantages, pros, cons of making this more competitive for development grants, things like that? Like, is that more just a on paper factor, or is there like, how could grant type things, if we were to change it, make that more applicable?
I don't know if there's a guaranteed return on investment by doing it. It's more of a branding type decision than it is guaranteed that you're going to get better access to grants or anything. It's more of a public perception and branding.
Okay.
At the same time, you have the other side of that coin, the public perception of we've always been the town of Mount Carmel. So yeah, that's why I said it's kind of down the middle. There's pros and cons, but it's not like a necessary thing that has to be done. This was just kind of to right any type of confusion and see what the will of the board is, because I've heard little things over the past year or two, comments one way or the other. This is kind of just to bring it up and see what the will is and where we want to go.
I feel that all the older people is gonna be upset because it's been the town of Mount Carmel way before I was born.
And at the end of the day, no matter what we call ourselves, we're the same team doing the same things, providing the same level of service. None of that's going to change.
I think at this point, if somebody wants to action that, Tyler and putting it on a future agenda, but we'll leave that for right now. Probably the best place to see if anybody wants to action it later.
Okay.
I don't necessarily kill it completely, but maybe move on in the future. Any other discussion on that? Move us into item number 3 then, annual update of personnel policy and procedures.
So I'll start it off. Obviously, with the new budget comes a new pay plan and all that. That gets published in the personnel rules and regs. So we've done that, and also Tyler has a recommendation for an addition to the personnel rules and regs, and I'll let him go ahead and explain that.
Sure. I would like to formally adopt a service anniversary recognition program where we recognize people for their years of service with a monetary gift. I've worked for several organizations, even other towns that do that. What I'm proposing is a tiered system, so starting at 5, 10, 15, up through 30 years of service, with 5 years starting at $250, and I think 30 years goes up to should be $3,500. So that should be $3,500 at 30 years. The frequency of this is not going to happen very often because we're such a small, so the monetary impact is not going to be as large as a bigger organization. It's going to be one-off anniversaries here and there. A plaque or certificate is nice, but also if you get a monetary recognition, that can go a long way in rewarding employees. So I think that would be important to consider. There's a part-time and a full-time consideration. So part-time is less on the monetary side, but still the same number of years. So the part-time starts out, I think, at $100 and goes up to $2,500 after 30 years.
So would it just be a bonus in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the Christmas bonus, so
Yeah.
it doesn't add to the base salary or any of that. It's just a bonus.
Other than Carl, do we have any employees that have been here for 30 years?
Yeah, one.
Who?
Carl.
Is it
No,
stop
just-
Carl?
Just
The
Carl.
next
Jason.
closest is 21 years part-time.
Okay, so the one thing that I would, to consider approving that, I would like to retroactively include Carl with that max bonus, for 30 years, if we decide to do this and proceed with it, he would already be capped out at that, and he's already put in 30 years service for the town, so I would like to see us retroactively provide that to him.
Okay.
What would you do in a situation where somebody's worked, somebody mentioned 21 years part-time, and then goes full-time after that?
They maintain their seniority based on hire date.
But what happens to the financial reward?
They would shift into the full-time employee range would be my assumption.
at the
Okay,
third
even
year.
if most of the time it's been part-time and then they switch to full-time, we would do.
But they've also been here for 20 years.
Right.
That's,
Oh, I understand.
and we do have volunteer, or, part-time folks that have been here a very long time.
Okay, okay, I was just,
Yeah,
okay.
the answer is yes. That,
They would
you're
treat
correct.
whatever, when they reach that milestone, whatever category they're in at that point is what they would be
Okay.
recognized.
All except you, it wouldn't apply to you. You're
And that
already
bonus
over
isn't
8
taxed, is it?
It's subject to
Nobody
Social
gave you
Security and
permission to
Medicare, but it's not subject to federal income tax. That's up to the individual to
Right.
take care of at the time they file their taxes, but if the board wishes, like we do at Christmas, we pay over the $600, we pay over that
So
to
they
cover.
cover.
We pay the
I would-
taxes.
If
I
that's
would
something
like
the
to
board
see
would
that.
desire, we can incorporate that in.
I would like to
Where it's a bonus, a flat bonus, where
It
we cover
is.
the taxes
Yes.
essentially.
Because I think that's.
So the
fair.
consensus of the board, is to build the bonus around being able to cover the taxes, as I understand it.
Yes.
If that's not correct, please let me know. Okay.
So I think we should go ahead and proceed with putting this on the,
Yeah.
would you be able to have this agenda item ready by the end of the
Yes.
It'll be part of the new personnel policy.
New person, okay, I'm sorry, you said that.
This personnel policy, and I should know this, but I don't. Does that cover like the holidays?
Yes,
Yes.
it does.
Can we include January 1st? Because, or what day are you guys not? Is it New Year's Eve or New Year's Day that you're not?
New Year's
It's New
Eve.
Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. Can we add that to give New Year's Eve off?
You can do whatever you want.
To add that
It
in
would
there.
take a majority of the board to move the item, but the absolute.
Would you guys be
we can
okay if-
As a consensus, if you're interested in entertaining it, let me know, and I can certainly include it in there. You want to talk about just changing the language too at this
Yeah.
time, and
There was request last year after the personnel policy was passed to go back and change a vote that was made. You could just include all federal holidays
That's easiest.
and just have it say all federal holidays, and then you could designate your town holidays, which would be Good Friday, Christmas Eve, Good Friday, Thanksgiving Day after, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve.
Oh,
And National Election Day, so
Juneteenth,
that
The
would be
federal
under
holiday.
the federal holiday.
okay.
The National Election Day, is that a holiday then?
It's
it has
every
been
2 years
appointed by
you all
yes,
last year
Really?
yes.
as a replacement.
That was a replacement for
Okay.
Juneteenth.
Right.
I would want to correct that one because we already people get paid on
To
election
leave.
day to go vote.
Right, they only get 3
3
hours.
hours.
We
So,
passed?
We
I didn't
had
know.
this discussion back when this
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
We did
I
talk
forgot.
about this at the
Yeah,
at the board meeting when this
We got
happened.
rid of Juneteenth.
Correct, and the makeup was the
No,
every other year.
Every other year.
the-
When there's an
Yeah.
election.
they get to leave work anyway.
Every other year.
Right.
So we'll rework the language there for your consideration, and we'll see where the board goes with the vote.
What is it, banking, federal holidays, banking days?
It is
and then the
whatever
adopting.
is established by the federal government that gives a day off.
Right, and then we
And
adopt the town.
It goes through, so generally it goes through the Congress and presidential
Right.
approval and the legislative process to be recognized as a federal
And
holiday.
we had 2 days in December this past year that were declared a holiday by executive order,
Right.
and we closed for those because of the language in the policy.
Mhm.
So it gives us the flexibility to modify whatever the federal schedule is. But I would like to see the language tightened up in the personnel policy because right now it's all over the place.
Yep.
And misunderstood is the problem. When you have something that's not clear and creates misunderstanding, it makes it worse. It's better to not have a rule.
And that comes up July 1st for the new personnel policy?
Yes.
No,
It'll be effective
it'll be
July 1st.
effective July 1st, but it gets voted on in June
Okay.
with an effective date of the new budget, the new fiscal year.
So this month is when we'll vote on,
Yes.
it'll be on
Correct.
this month's
The 20,
agenda.
the 25th meeting was when you will vote on all of those things.
Okay.
So, and we can include all of that in the personnel policies.
Is there additional changes that we're looking at making to the personnel policies besides the bonus structure, holidays, and that?
Unless you all have any input, the answer is no.
And if there's any additional staff recommendations for that, so.
No staff recommendations at this time.
Any other discussions, considerations on personnel policy procedures? Takes us to item number 4, then financial update.
So as you know, I've had our money invested in the local government investment pool for the past year and a half. Those rates are continuing to drop with the rates nationwide dropping. We were approached by our bank to do a CD with some of that money for a 12-month CD, lock in a 3.63% interest rate, which is what we're at right now on our interest on the LGIP. So if we lock that in for 12 months, we're probably going to save losing some money on interest. I feel comfortable that we could at least take $5 million of the $7 million and put it in a CD. There are ways to get to a CD if you absolutely have to have them, but I think we're comfortable with the $2 million savings and then the $5 million in in the CD. But I just kind of wanted to run that by you before I went
Are
down
those
that
type
road.
of CDs the ones that you're penalized when you pull from, like if you pull from it early?
I believe the penalty is you lose your interest. That you,
Okay.
But
I
your
don't
principal
think you lose
doesn't
any
get touched.
principal.
Yeah, your principal's solid.
3.6%, did you say?
3.63.
3.63?
And he said that was good at either 5 or 6 million, but I'd feel more comfortable with 5.
I'm fine with 5.
Will that require a formal vote action, or
No,
just
I'm just
more
advising
discussion?
you.
No,
Okay.
we're just bringing up for discussion.
Any other discussion on that or questions in regards to that? I'll take us into number 5, future fire department grant opportunities.
So, been approached by the fire chief with 2 grants that are upcoming opportunities. One of them is the Assistance to Firefighters grant. The other is the SAFER grant. And Chief Walker is well versed in this, and I will let him start. And if you have any questions for either one of us, you're welcome to ask that.
So I'm always looking for grant opportunities. These are really the 2 largest nationwide grants. They're both administered by FEMA. The AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighters grant, it allows purchase of equipment, vehicles, things like that. What we would like to do is apply for radios that give us interoperability with surrounding agencies that we currently don't have. These radios are also designed to be on the state system. We currently don't have that. They're also designed for firefighters. They're not designed for utility workers. I'll just leave that at that. Anyway, they would allow much safer communications, consistent. The interoperability is a big thing. We're basically on an island right now. So with this grant, we would apply for portables, the handheld radios, mobiles that go in all the vehicles and a base station for the fire department. They also work on the current system. But it's about $509,000. FEMA will fund for us. The cost share would be 5%, so that's around $23,000. The state fire marshal's office, the same one we've got, those extrication tools, the SCBA compressor, those several larger grants over the last couple of years, allows the matching funds to be applied for through the state, and they pretty much funded those matching funds at 100%. So potentially, we could get that project funded at 100% if we were awarded the FEMA grant. Now, those are super competitive. There is no guarantee. They have about 10,000 applications. They award about 1,800 people a year. So, but we've put in quite a bit of work on that already, but we wanted you all to be aware of that. So that one is kind of a no-brainer of the 2, in my opinion. If there's any questions on any of those, I'll be glad to answer it. The reason we're bringing it to you now, both of these, they're due June 22nd, so that's prior to your next board meeting. So we just kind of need a consensus from the board if you want us to proceed with me to proceed with turning those in.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Assistance to the firefighters grant.
Correct.
What was the other one?
Safer. I'll talk about that one next.
Do you, let's just in case there's a split, just kind of looking for consensus for just this one. Does anybody have questions for just this assistance to firefighter aspect of it with the equipment and radios? Hope we can pull that one off, Chief, and you want to go over the safer one?
Yeah, so the SAFER grant is staffing for adequate fire and rescue services. That is also administered through FEMA. It's very competitive as well. They're almost identical processes. You just put in different information. The SAFER grant what we're proposing is to is to apply for 4 positions for the fire department. That would give us 1 full-time personnel per shift in addition to our part-time personnel. So there will be somebody at the fire department 24/7. Currently, there's somebody there, starting July 1, there's somebody there 8 to 5, 7 days a week. The rest of the time, people have to respond from home. Whether that's the part-timers or volunteers, it's usually a combination of both. But this would give, this would make somebody be there 24/7 and immediate response. The truck would roll automatically every time. There would be no delay in waiting for somebody to come to the station. It would also allow our first responder vehicle to be staffed 24/7, 365. Currently, it's only in service when the station's staffed, or if EMS has gotten busy and they've asked for us to put it in service. We do that after hours now with volunteers, but it's not an everyday thing. That grant funds 75% for 2 years of those positions. So basically, if you hire 4 people, it'll pay for 3 of them for 2 years. The 3rd year, it funds 35%, and then the 4th year, it's on us. So we can apply for that now. If we're awarded, we can immediately start planning for how we're going to sustain that in 3 years. We do have the opportunity to reapply in 3 years, but just like the first time, there's no guarantee that we'll get it this time either. It's something that, I'm going to be bringing to you guys whether we get this grant or not. Emergency services are volunteerism declines across the nation. We're lucky what we have here, but this is being proactive versus me coming to you all in a crisis. So I think I didn't print my sheet that I presented to Tyler, but it's around $315,000 for those 4 positions. That's salaries and benefits based on the same pay scale as the police department. They would come in at the same rate as entry-level police officers. They're on a 42-hour work week if we hire 4. So that limits our overtime costs substantially. We could potentially hire 3, but then we don't have depth when somebody calls in or calls out. And we're getting into the overtime situation with that number of people. Then they're on a 56-hour work week.
Yes.
So, the 24/72 schedule, they work 1 day, be off 3. We'll be the only department in the area that does that currently, so it would be a recruitment tactic, and it would give us depth for when somebody calls in. Obviously, the priority there would be to cover it with the part-time personnel first to avoid that overtime cost, but this would help keep that down, having those 4 positions. So, like I said, it's about $315,893 for those 4 positions based on that entry-level police officer pay with the benefits. And you can see the breakdown. Do they have this? No. Okay, sorry.
They'll get it if they're interested and
yeah, I wasn't sure if you put it in their package or not. So year 1 and 2, the grant would fund $236,920. We would fund $78,973. Year 3, the grant would fund $115,000 and some change, and the town would fund $213,000. And then, like I said, year 4, it's on us, but we can reapply. But again, there's no guarantee. That's again it's due before the next board meeting. Even if we're awarded, you all would then have to vote after it's awarded to accept or reject. There are municipalities that have been awarded and had to reject because they didn't know what they were going to do. I would absolutely advise against that, but it is possible.
Can I throw you a couple questions about that? Volunteer being down across the board, volunteerism. I know you've got a pretty good base of volunteers that work over there. Would this hurt further recruitment for volunteers, or would it help in regards of actually being something where people could go from volunteer to actually being an employee?
I think that is exactly right. It would give them a route to go, in hopes of having a full-time
'Cause
position.
Right now, I know that we see a lot of, well, I've seen a lot of our guys that volunteer for us. They
And
work
work
for
full-time
Kingsport.
somewhere else.
They
Yeah, we
work
have
full-time
12
somewhere.
of those right now.
Yeah, and that's it goes back into the more long-term planning of it's going to with that. I know there's some costs, and the fourth year cost is the one that kind of like what gives me a little bit of concern with it.
Right.
But the benefit of what you're going to see long-term for the fire department having full-time employees, because another thing I want to really point out, that first responder vehicle being in service 24/7 is a really big deal. Because that means that you're not totally dependent upon the ambulance service for right here in this, in the local areas where you could have somebody on scene providing that, life-saving support much faster than having to wait on an ambulance. I know there's multiple instances of times where that's made a big difference on the outcome of the quality of that person's life. And so I really want to call attention to that aspect of it as well. When you're looking at the investment cost of it, we're having the fire services, we're having that first responder vehicle on it, and we would essentially have 3 years to really try to figure out how to pay for it.
Correct. The other big benefit that I didn't hit on, but I hit on heavy with the grant, is your ISO rating. We went through that back in January. We're still waiting on that updated score to come back. I'm expecting it any day. I've checked the website like 4 times a day. But personnel, the fire department is 50% of that total score. Personnel is the largest contributing factor to that 50%. So, having personnel in the station and on scene both, whether, you get credit for having personnel in the station, whether they ever run a call or not, basically, because they're there immediately ready to respond.
If you don't care for me to weigh in a
If
little bit.
I just want to throw one more question out to him, and then we'll move on with it. But would you say it basically be like the same argument would be true in regards of the pumper tank that we're looking at applying for, right, at the long-term
CDBG
station planning, right?
Yeah.
With the grant, this is essentially the same type of investment, more of just this is in labor versus equipment.
100%.
So if we were fortunate enough to be able to secure both of those, we could we could see a bigger improvement. So in the long run, your residentials here outside of the short radius of the fire department would then see savings returned on insurance to offset some of the costs of
Every time that's scored, currently we're ISO class 5. I looked for, I can't say for sure, based off my calculations, I think we will be a 4 with this next, and maybe I shouldn't say that because I'll tell you, if I come back and tell you we're at 5, but, based on my calculations, I think that's where we're going to be. Every time that number drops, it's a 10 to 15% reduction in homeowners insurance premiums. Every time it drops a score, 10 to 15%.
That was my last.
No problem. So the other part of this is the volunteer fire department. So during the daytime, we get a truck out immediately. For the first responder truck, time is tissue. And what that means is the longer you're down without intervention, the less likely you are to survive whatever it is. So this is a direct benefit to the public by doing that. The second part is the ISO side. ISO cares about one thing: first alarm assignment and first alarm response. And this is us addressing that in a thoughtful way, where we get a truck out of the station immediately. When you have to wait for a volunteer to respond to a station and then respond to a call, that's a huge delay in a response that requires immediate response. And Mitch has done a very good job, obviously, with the fire department. I couldn't be happier as the manager of this town. You have the right guy sitting in the seat. The amount of money that he's secured in grants over time, he's been thoughtful in his approach, and he's been thoughtful in the operational approach. So I say all that to say this sets it up to be an immediate response that makes a difference in people's lives. The lady we saved off of, thank you. The lady we saved off of Bay Street, by happenstance, we had it on a training night when his one guy was going to be going home, but ended up falling asleep on the couch, and luckily he woke up late, and he ended up on the truck. So we had enough people immediately to respond out of the station, get there. So there was 4 people on scene that quick. If that didn't happen and we had to wait the 5 minutes for somebody to get to the station, pick up a truck, assemble a crew, and get out of there, that lady's probably not surviving and enjoying life today. So I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but you all know this is the industry I come from, and your fire chief is doing everything right in addressing the community risk. He's not trying to build a metropolitan fire department. He's trying to build a fire department that responds to the community of Mount Carmel, that provides direct service to the public. So this investment and business operation plan is directly in line with that. So, and that's my opinion. So.
Anybody have any further questions, concerns, arguments against why you wouldn't apply for this?
So just to be clear, I mean, because it is due before you all meet again, you do want me to proceed.
Yes.
Go get them, Tiger.
Well, it's very competitive, but we'll get it the best shot.
All right, so that takes on to then item number 6, trash pickup route changes.
That was a very popular one.
So we were contacted by the city of Kingsport a few weeks ago about potential changes in the trash pickup schedule. They met with us, discussed that with us, with Jason, Jim, myself, their operations manager. According to the contract that we have with them, they can make changes to the schedule. I really don't even think they're required to let us know, but they did have a meeting. They talked with us about it. They've given us maps, information, graphics, things to help promote it. So we put that information out on Monday. They're going to be condensing from 3 days a week to 2 days a week. So a lot of people's trash day will be changing, but instead of running 1 truck at a time, they'll be running 2 trucks at a time. And they're going to be running on days where they're also in the surrounding areas outside of Mount Carmel so that they can come back and take care of any issues. The way they put it to us, it helps them optimize their operations so that in the future they don't have to come back to us for more increases outside of what we've already agreed to. So it's designed as a benefit to both in some way or another. So any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer those.
What's the effective date of when that new map?
July 13th.
July 13th.
And they have promised for the first several weeks to take care of any stragglers or issues that people who forget. They promised that they will take care of that. And there'll be somebody coming behind the truck in the next week or 2 to put a sticker on the can to say your trash day is changing.
Anybody have any other questions or concerns in regards to that? We'll move on to item number 7. Sorry, was that all, Tyler?
That's it.
Thank you. Move on to item number 7, then sewer rate study update.
You want me to take it?
Sure.
Okay, so as you all know, we've been waiting on this sewer rate study that was being done by MTAS. So they've come back with a rate study for us. Their recommendation is option 4, which brings us up by 15% for fiscal year 27, 15.6% fiscal year 28, and then 5% fiscal year 29, 5% fiscal 30, for a total of 40.6% overall. Now,
How much have we raised it already so much? So 35.
35 initially, and then 4.6 this last time, consistent with the plan. The other part is after the rate study, if we follow this, we should be right-sized with net position and not be in the doghouse with the comptroller's office. But it takes till FY28 to get us the net position change to a positive. So 26, 27 are going to end in a net position change still in a deficit. It goes down if we increase like they're recommending, and the comptroller's office basically said we have to follow the rate study. Now, you don't have to do any of this, but if you don't, it's back to what I said about the comptroller taking over your utility, and they will make the decision to set the rate, and they will take it over for 10 years, and they will manage the financial side of it, while we're stuck responsible still managing the operational side of it. So I say all that to say, I put a lot of work into analyzing this. We've worked very closely with the rate study folks, and while I know this is a tough pill to swallow, it must be stressed that the enterprise fund of utility has to pay for itself. You can't supplementally fund it out of general fund tax dollars or any other means. It has to be the fee for service that provides that. So,
we were presented with several options, and we even pushed back on some of those options to try to break it down over the next 5 years so that we can get to that point. Of course, one option is to fix it right now and fix it next year, and that's going to really hurt our customers. But this option it's called a hybrid for a reason. It splits it right down the middle the best we can. And 20 years of lack of raising rates, you all are left in a very unfortunate position because of that. So now it's up to the board, to take the time to look at this and see, is this time to make it right? And then going forward, you should be able to do your inflationary adjustments every year and not have to worry about this again.
and I would still recommend, after adopting this as your 5-year plan, to continue to address it through CPIU, water, wastewater maintenance, as an address. Obviously, your guy in finance is going to tell you that we're above the line and we're not in a net position that's in a deficit. But, this is a thing that's kept me up at night since I've been here. And that's problematic. So, yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what the rates is gonna be for year 27, 28, 29? Do you have any idea?
I do. In the option 4 hybrid, it goes from $45.90 to $52.79. And then in 27 to 28, it goes from $52.79 to $61.04.
It's insane.
FY 28 to 29, and this is the base rate, goes to $64.09. And then FY 30, it goes to $67.27. The additional 1,000 gallons for the people that use more than the base rate goes from $7.41 in FY 26 to $8.52 in 27, to $9.85 in 28, to $10.34 in 29, and to $10.86 in 30. The total dollar amount adjustment over a 5-year period is $21.37 for the base rate and $3.45 for the additional rate. And the total percentage increase over that time is 40.6%.
40?
40.6% over the 5-year period. So that's an average of about 8% over 5 years.
The only thing bad about this, the seniors, we got a lot of seniors that don't even make $1,200 a month. It's putting a strain on them. And I had one last night. They don't know how they're going to do this.
I understand the plight of our residents, but I also understand the plight of the town. And I can't, as I said, there's no other way to fund this operation. There's no other way to accomplish this operation.
Well, what I'm saying, if the seniors can't get the money, what are they supposed to do? Put a septic tank in? Which I would agree with that.
They can't.
Well,
That's not a permissible action.
I know that.
Okay.
But
He's just hinting.
When we originally brought this up to you last year, I said it's going to take us about 70% to get right.
And
well, that's
where we're at.
what this is, plus inflationary costs for the year. So, just basic math. I mean, it's really unfortunate that we're in this situation. But it's the cards we've been dealt, and we're trying to deal with it in a responsible way.
And as a board, you've been handed this from previous boards that failed to act.
And
By setting the table for there to be incremental increases year over year
Should've never gotten
and
started.
conditioning that, because everybody knows that what you paid for something last year is not what you're gonna pay this year, and every year thereafter.
I understand all that, but the thing of it is, there's a lot of people out there, they don't get the money that you get, or I get, or they get. They cannot keep on buying this stuff.
I don't understand the reference, but what I
And if
will
you get a
say,
raise in Medicare and in Social Security, Medicare takes most of it.
Right.
So
very similar to cities and towns who provide insurance, and it has to raise year over year. It's very similar. And that's what I'm gonna say is, I've said this to you before, everybody lives on a fixed income. And some people's fixed income is much less than others. But at the end of the day, the cost of essential services, and I would assume that you would agree that wastewater treatment is an essential service, has to be funded. And that is the approach that we've taken, is we're trying to fix that. No different than the state of our wastewater plant.
Well,
Years of lack of maintenance have put us in a place where we've struggled and had to fight through things. So I don't want to belabor the point, and I understand and respect what you're saying, but there is no other option other than the ratepayer to pay for the service. That is the only way that an enterprise fund works.
I would say this. The previous 20 years of boards has had the same mentality. Our seniors, our people cannot afford this. Now it's come to our lap, and we have no choice. If we do not adopt this, then the state's gonna come in, and you ain't gonna have no say, and they ain't gonna have no say. They can come in today and say, we're gonna put 50% on your water bill. Today.
you can preach it all you want to, you ain't gonna convince me nothing.
I've got one thing on this,
Yes.
because before, I mean, I agree completely with what Jim just said, but Barry just said, but is there, on the theory aspect of it, our utility, the sewer plant is no different than the power utility?
Correct.
Correct, they're public utilities. So if you really looked at it over the last 20 years and put dollar to decimal for how much your power rate has increased for year over year with a kilowatt hour, and now they're talking about jacking another 9 or whatever percent rates. Like, it's the same thing. The problem is that we ran ours with no change on that rate for so many years. We're now eating all this on this rear end of it, where we're having to play catch up. And I mean, I agree. It's hard in one breath to say, let's move $5 million from the general fund into a CD because we can draw more interest, when it would be a very quick fix to pull that $5 million and fix our sewer plant. But that's not how it works. Right. I mean, it doesn't work that way. So we're stuck with kind of the cards that were dealt, and it either becomes we retain that control over it and set the rates and do everything that we can to mitigate it, or we throw our hands up in there and let the state take it. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that you would see that. What's the break even? 40.6.
40.6 over 5 years.
It's not unrealistic if the state was to come in. They could take that 40.6, put it on it today.
Correct.
And that's the new
Day
rate.
one.
That's the
and,
new rate.
and one of the options is that.
I mean, that's so.
One of the options was 36.3% on year one. The rate went from 45.90 to 62.55. That's option 2.
So that's what's happening regardless, right? That's the finish line's happening regardless. It just becomes a matter of, do we want to retain control on how we get there? Do we want to try to mitigate this to where we mitigate the impact for each year over year, so it's not just a blunt hit of 40% on the next month or two? But I agree, it's a situation that we're unfortunately handed, but we've just got to manage the situation the best we can to get out of it.
Yep.
And obviously we can't do anything here but talk about it.
Right.
But this will be before you as an action item at the next board meeting. And the rate study recommendation from the consultant is option 4, the hybrid. As I said, it doesn't turn us over in year 1 or 2. It turns over in year 3, where we're a positive net deficit of, we're surplus to 48,000 of a $9 million operation. That's not a lot.
It's nothing.
And by the end of year 5, we're at 189 in a $9 million, almost $10 million operation. So that's the thing that Tyler and the next assistant manager will look at going forward to figure it out. And I promise you that if you do not build a system that's sustainable, you're going to be back at this place in 20 years or 15 years or 8 years, because we've decided not to do this because it's popular and it's painful, but it's the right thing to do to right the ship and keep it going. And I'm, I take no great pleasure in bringing bad news to you ever. I hope you all know that. But the reality is, this is where we're at. You all didn't create this, and neither did I. Nor did the residents. Other than the residents have enjoyed not having raises of rates over 2 decades. And they got hit with a 35% after the second decade that was adjusted. So those are some of the conversation points. And to Tyler's point, if we would have done this all in one fell swoop when we did the 35%, none of us would have been sitting here.
Facts.
And the reality is, but the comptroller's office could have easily come in here and said, Tibor, go fix it. And they say 80% increase day one.
And you still get the blame.
And you get to work it and figure out how to make the operation work. But we're going to put the rate for the next 10 years. We're going to manage it for you. That's not a good business practice. I would never want you to abdicate your authority and responsibility for it, because they're still going to yell at you. The residents are still going to yell at you, even if the state came in here and set the rate for you.
Yeah, but it's the resident that can't pay for it, regardless of whether we do it or the
Correct.
state does it, they still can't pay for it.
And the problem is, though, then the utility fails, which we know what that looks like. And I hate to say this, but the economy of scale, we're in a situation where the economy of scale can't be met for operation. It's just that simple. And the decision making that occurred on the front end of us becoming a wastewater manager or a wastewater plant operation was not a thoughtful one, and has put everybody sitting at this dais in a compromised position to have to make decisions on things that are going to continue to be faced. So, and to your point, the people that can't pay, I understand that. But I don't have a solution for that. And, you can ask me, well, should I buy food, or should I pay for my water and sewer, or should I can't answer that question for people, because that's a personal choice. However we navigate that is each one of our family's decisions to do. But I sympathize with them having to make that decision. Just like choosing whether they're going to get medications or health care. So that's the challenge of this. And I knew this was going to be a hot button topic, but it had to come back to you all, and it has to be decided. So
We have to,
That's why one thing to that too. And while it might not be truly like the popular and the politics side, it's true more on the financial side. The opportunity, or the problem that we got handed with the sewer department, we truly had no control, minimal control over. Right, our only control has been of trying to work out the mess that we were in. Right, this is where we found ourselves. This is what we got handed. We were trying to work out of that mess. So I think that one of the biggest things that we're going to have to be imperative of factoring in what we do have control over, and while we might not have control over the sewer tax rate, we do have control over the property tax rate. And the longer that we can maintain battling the cost of inflation by holding that number steady, that's showing that's where we're actually managing the operations day to day, and truly by managing that number, saving people more money in the overall by trying to keep the tax rate flat rate, even when you're looking at inflation factors that are driving the cost of everything up. I think that's what speaks to some of the operations that our staff does, is that over these last few years, if you look at the cost of inflation and you look at the tax rate for Mount Carmel, there's a lot of difference in change year over year. Ours has stayed the same, but we're maintaining the same, if not higher level of services for that same money. So that to me is what is. We've got to look at what we can control, what we can't control, and mitigate it the best we can.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mayor, because that is 100% the truth. Keeping the tax rate at an adjusted rate based on the reassessment gives you control of not making people priced out of their homes. And that's the reality of it. And making up the loss of, because everything's going up. Their electric bill's going up, the phone bill's going up, their county taxes are going up. All of those things get impacted in that conversation. And it's not, people want to know they're getting quality services for what they invest their money in. And that's the other part that we have to be able to describe and explain as a municipal provider. And over decades, we haven't communicated well. Now we're communicating well. And people are upset, but the reality is still the reality. And, I appreciate your approach to addressing the things in the room that can be addressed to adjust in the cost ability for people to survive. So what you just said was profound and purposeful and makes a whole lot of sense.
All right, we have any other questions on that? We'll be seeing that coming up at this month's meeting. We'll keep at it there. That takes us now to number 8, Public Safety Recognition, National Law Enforcement Appreciation, and International Firefighters Day.
So that's mine. And basically last year we did something for law enforcement, but it was after the National Law Enforcement Appreciation Week. And it was minimal. It was just to the sheriff's office. This year we didn't do anything. I'd like to see something where maybe in March of next year we can start looking at doing something for law enforcement and for firefighters. Doesn't have to be anything major. It could be something as simple as a prayer over them, invite them to a meeting, have a prayer over them, buy them something small, anything, but to simply go without doing anything to recognize these people. I don't know, I really didn't like that. I think we really need to do something for them. It doesn't have to be anything major. The reason I say in the previous, I think I said March, that would give us time in April and the beginning of May to get something lined up for them. So I don't know how you want to proceed with that. Do I need to make a motion or what?
I mean,
No motions here.
We'll be
We'll
looking at
address
it
it in the spring.
Okay.
Just keep that on your radar, to bring that up probably at the March workshop. And
Okay, so you want me to track it? And
well, I will also,
We'll put it on a tickler file to remember.
So here's the weeks for law enforcement and the firefighters. It's interesting, the National Law Enforcement Appreciation Week was put together by President Kennedy in '62. There's no federally designated Firefighters Appreciation Week, but judging by what we've seen in our department, I think that's really, it screams for that. So I'll give you a copy of this. Okay.
Any other discussion on that item? We'll move us into item number 9, Code Enforcement, Independence Avenue.
Again, that's me. I was prolific this week. And we had talked before about having somebody who's in charge of code enforcement look at some of the homes on the bottom end of Independence. We currently have now 2 homes that are abandoned. Well, I won't say abandoned, but they're not being used. And I don't have the legal wherewithal to say their status. But now that we do have somebody in code enforcement, if they could go up and down that street and say, okay, I'm going to work on this house and this house with none of the others, and then start working on it, I think that would be a good idea.
You want to do the job?
I'm not a code enforcement person. I was when I worked in a jail, but that was a different type of code. And then, okay, so. Do you want me to
So
jump
we've just hired our
Right.
code and building person. His primary function is building, his secondary is code. we are in the process of making it, not only him, but our police officers being involved in that process, and the fact that they're out in the town all times. They have the ability to view, observe, they have the ability to put civil citations out, they have the ability to do some of those things. So I say all that to say, it's a work in progress, but we haven't been able to snap our fingers and do everything. The other thing I'm gonna say is the property maintenance code is a tricky thing, because, you know, tall grass, overgrown, trash in the yard, all of those things, you can focus on them, but the time that it takes to get those things adjusted and changed, you can't snap your fingers and do it.
I'm not saying that this has to be immediate, you know.
And it is being worked on, though, is what I'm gonna tell you. I wish that we could move faster, but, and, you know,
There are a lot of-
to the lawyer's point, there's a process that has to go with due process.
I understand that.
So.
And, you know, yes, I wish I could snap my fingers and have it take place, but I realize it's gonna take time, but I don't want it to fall off the table and we don't deal with it. You know, I mean, if it takes 6 months, if it takes a year, at least we're moving forward, and that's important.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that? I will take us on item number 10, traffic safety, 11W between Hammond Avenue and Independence Avenue.
That's me again. Well, you.
Welcome to the meeting.
Right, this is the end of the list. I was just curious, I haven't heard anything about what's going on with, for example, changing the stop signs at Independence and the 11th. You know, we were told that was something that was gonna be looked at, talked about.
You talking about the traffic study?
Yeah,
That's,
I think we're still waiting on TDOT.
the answer is TDOT moves at the speed of a snail. And,
okay.
and,
Okay,
and
but
they're the ones that are in charge of that, because we can't start messing with their traffic pattern.
Well,
No, not well. We cannot mess with the traffic pattern. I have a police officer in the hallway. I'm not interested in going to jail for doing something that I'm not authorized to do.
okay, as long as it's in the works, I mean, I haven't heard anything,
It
so.
is. And once again, this is that municipal corporation speed that takes forever. And people don't understand, by the time they're done with the traffic study, they needed another traffic study.
Yeah.
My
So-
first initial is P, it stands for Philip, it has never stood for patience, so
You and I are very similar. I don't have patience either.
great minds think alike. Okay, and for Mr.
Don't
Gill,
ask me, it'll come my turn.
it's now, the list is now finished.
All right, so that wraps it up for today. We don't have anything going between now and the meeting, do we? Nothing going on. When's the employee doing, is that post-meeting?
That is the 26th,
So that's
The
post-meeting.
Friday after.
12 o'clock.
All right, yeah, just hope everybody
We'll
can
be
come
there
out
and right
and
there.
support the employees.
We'll be there.
Appreciate everything that they're doing, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.